Hi, I'm Allison Brown. I'm a co-president of League of Women Voters Falls Church, and I welcome all of you to our presentation this afternoon. We're very happy to have two really active, engaged advocates handling immigration policy in our area. So we are going to learn a lot about immigration now. We all know it's been very difficult few years, and certainly the challenges are continuing. So we will welcome Archi Pyati, who's the Chief of Policy at Tahirih Justice Foundation. And they do direct legal services as well as policy and advocacy work around immigration issues. And we'll also welcome and hear from Eduardo Zelaya. And he's the regional lead organizer at CASA Virginia. And so he'll tell us about the local organizing work that he's doing. So we're very happy to have you both. And we are recording this session, so keep that in mind. And if you have questions, you're welcome to put it in the chat. We also, once the speakers are done with their presentations, we have a small enough group today. If you feel more comfortable unmuting and asking your question directly, that also works. So thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to turn it over to Archi.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. It's really nice to see you. I know it's a sunny, lovely day outside on a beautiful afternoon, so especially grateful to you for being here. And if you're watching the recording, thank you for your interest in the topic. I am, as Allison said, Archi. I'm a Falls Church City mom. I have two kids, 7th grade and 5th grade. And I've been active in the immigration and immigrant rights movement for my entire career. I am a child of immigrants and grew up in this country in the Chicago area. Got my career started as a lawyer right after 9/11, working with people who looked more like me and my family right after 9/11 who were being detained in the New York and New Jersey area, and got very invested in a lot of the work and organizing going on around ending detention, supporting communities and assisting individuals who needed free and high quality legal services at the time. And so now I work at the Tahirih Justice Center. We're an organization located right here in the Seven Corners area in Falls Church City, in Falls Church. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and see if I can have a PowerPoint presentation assist me. It's always a little funky with Zoom, so we'll see how this goes and you'll let me know what I'm sharing and if I'm doing it correctly.
You're there.
Are we doing it okay? Am I doing okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right, great. Well, let me go ahead and get started. So just a little bit about Tahirih, and I am going to try to go fairly quickly so Eduardo also has time and we can come back and answer questions about anything at the end. But the basic overview of Tahirih, in case you don't know us, the Tahirih Justice Center is a national organization, though headquartered here. Our mission is to serve immigrants who have experienced gender-based violence. A lot of the work we do impacts all immigrants, but the focus of our services mission is to work with primarily women and children who've experienced domestic violence, trafficking, sexual violence, a number of different kinds of abuse. We were founded in '97, so we've been around for a little while. We've served more than 30,000 individuals at this point. We do work on a federal level, so a lot of our advocacy work is here in Washington. It's important to us to be engaged here, even though we serve clients in a number of different jurisdictions around the country. The cities are listed here, and so our advocacy work really is not only federal, but also local and state in our, as we try to change the laws and the policies that impact our clients. You'll hear from Eduardo later as well about some more advocacy on a local level, and we'll both talk a little bit about how you can get involved. So just to give you, it's been a long time now that people's awareness about immigration has really gone up. I think when President Trump was elected in 2016, right in the beginning of 2017, one of his first acts was an executive order in January 2017, and it was focused on immigration and on the border and a number of issues related to domestic immigration policy. And all of a sudden, people cared about immigration. making phone calls, asking questions. It was never a more interesting time to be an immigration lawyer and to have people saying, even my own mom, wow, this is so cool that you're an immigration lawyer. I'd never heard that before. And so, unfortunately, the change we were seeing was nothing but negative for immigrants and immigrant survivors of violence, but all immigrants in the United States. Many people thought it was really focused on undocumented immigrants, which of course it was, but the impact was real for immigrants, regardless of status, regardless of the number of years they'd been here. And so as we tracked and did advocacy around the negative changes these last 4 years, we're now catching up and doing the same thing about some of the changes that have been happening since this January. And so I've been doing a number of presentations for various groups about what exactly is going on. You're hearing things in the news about executive order changes, but also things are changing in terms of courts making decisions. And then finally, we also have a lot of movement in Congress. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of an update along all of those 3 areas, and then we'll talk more about what we can do about it. So some of the really early executive actions we've seen, and this is a very abbreviated list, and there's a lot more I've done. People are doing, full day presentations on the changes. So just to give you a couple minutes about what we've seen this early on in just 2 months of this presidency, we have seen, number one, a restoration of priorities. And so that one of the first executive orders in 2017 flattened all of the priorities. So previously you would see certain people would be picked up and other people, ICE would pass them up and decide it's not worth our time, our money, our energy to find, arrest, detain, and deport certain individuals. The Trump administration flattened this. And so what happened was all of a sudden, everybody was fair game, including if you were an immigrant who had a pending application, you were fair game to be arrested, detained, and deported. And so a lot of our clients and other immigrants around the country became very panicked. I've shared my information with the government. They have my address. I filed an application. Now they could come for me. And they weren't wrong. It wasn't an irrational fear. And so those priorities being gone made everybody much more nervous these last 4 years, and really threw even the services community and the advocacy community for a loop. Now we have restored those priorities. We still see some changes, some areas and pockets where immigration enforcement officers are running wild, but for the most part, the priorities have been restored. There was a moratorium on removals, which meant that right out the gate on January 20th, President Biden said, no more deportations. That was actually blocked by a lawsuit that came out from the state of Texas very quickly. And so that's not true. Deportations are continuing. But that gives you a sense of the Biden administration's desire to make policy before moving people out of the country. Migration protection protocols are really a misnomer, which is why most of us in the advocacy community began calling it Remain in Mexico. It was a very bad policy under the last administration that forced people to stay in Mexico while pursuing safety in the United States. So people come to the US, file for asylum in the United States, and should be, under international and domestic law, afforded the opportunity to live in safety while they're pursuing their claim in court. Remain in Mexico shut that down. Everybody had to stay in Mexico. People were becoming sick, living in unsafe conditions at times, and unsanitary conditions at times. But that policy, thankfully, was paused right out the gate by the Biden administration. And so we started to see and hear about a slow trickle of now processing applications, allowing people to come into the United States and not be stuck over there. There are still COVID protection protocols in place. And so actually the number of people coming into the US is not great. I've only heard of some. There was created a task force right away to reunite families, which is really important. As you know, a couple of years ago, the zero tolerance policy that began prosecuting immigrants just for coming across the border to ask for protection caused the separation of parents from their children. Really brutal, inhumane policy. That was paused immediately when the Biden administration came in. They said, not only will we not be separating families, but we will create a task force to reunite those families that still have not been reunited after several years. That is in process, and we'll know more about whether families can be found and reunited soon. Deferred action for childhood arrivals, also called DACA. Most people know what it is now. It was a policy that was instituted by the Obama administration. It was then stopped by the Trump administration. We're now in this administration, applications are being heard again. And so for any individual who thought they were eligible but wasn't able to apply over the last several years, they're now able to apply again. There's been some confusion among practitioners about who qualifies now. Did they age out over the last several years? So that is still being sorted out. But for the most part, if you hear of people who think they should be able to apply for DACA, it's true, they may well be able to apply, and they should speak with a lawyer about their eligibility. Thankfully, the refugee cap will be raised again. We reached all-time historic lows last year, and this year, starting in October, we're going to be bumped up again per President Biden's promise and an executive proclamation. And finally, a lot of other bad policies that were issued in the last administration are going to be reviewed or are under review. When the executive orders first came out, a lot of us were pretty disappointed that many of them said, will be reviewed, and that was kind of leaving us thinking, well, what is the review going to look like and when will that happen? But actually, we're seeing now already the impact of some of that. And the way that that review has shown up is actually in the fact that there are a number of lawsuits that are ongoing that relate to these immigration policies, where the review is causing an end to federal defense of the policies. For example, the public charge rule, which was a rule that was brought up by the last administration again, made it so that many more individuals would be afraid to move their status into just afraid to use any public benefits, even those for which they're eligible, because when they seek to move their status into getting a green card to be here permanently, they wouldn't be allowed to get that status. They'd be barred simply because they accessed public benefits for which they're eligible. So it's a way of saying the law allows you to receive these benefits, but we're going to punish you anyway. And so that had a significant ripple effect across the country. People didn't want to access protections. If they could access protections and thought they wanted to, they were too afraid to because of what might happen down the road. When the pandemic hit, as you might imagine, people were either becoming ill or needed to access various protections just to stay safe. And they were like COVID testing and things like that. And they were too afraid to, even though there was no impact on them because of the public charge rule. So it caused confusion, it caused panic, it caused fear with real health and public health implications. Thankfully, this administration declined to defend the public charge rule in the face of a lawsuit. And so as of the 9th of this month, we're no longer seeing the public charge rule in effect, which is wonderful. So we now will see that crumbling around us. And hopefully we'll be able to see legislation in the future that would prevent that from ever happening again. There are a lot of other less publicly discussed high impact procedural rules I won't go into now in the interest of time, and also to avoid being too wonky and talking too much about the details of immigration practice. But a lot of rules came down in these last several years that we were fighting in lawsuits at the Tahirih Justice Center. Nobody talked about them in the media, but nonetheless, if you're a lawyer trying to represent an immigrant, the policies were really damning. They're all being shut down one by one in court. So that's a real boon for us. And finally, there are so many additional lawsuits pending. Again, I won't go through all of them now, but also almost all of our clients now, when we're applying for asylum or other kinds of protection for them, used to be they would be granted pretty easily, but in the last several years, their cases were being denied. All of those cases are now in appeals. And so they're going to just be continuing through the chain of appellate litigation, which can take years and years. So while there's been a lot of great progress by the administration, a lot of the damage that has been done is going to take us a long time to undo. And we are working on a case-by-case basis. Every one of our clients is now essentially in a holding pattern as we're moving through all these stages of appeal. So one of my last slides now before I pass it off to Eduardo. I want to talk a little bit about legislative action. I have a feeling he'll talk about some of it too. So I'll just give you a little bit of an overview. You will have heard about the U.S. Citizenship Act, USCA. It has not passed the House or the Senate at this point. Oops, I advanced too quickly. It has not passed the House or the Senate at this point. It includes many important improvements. Of course, as an advocate, I would say there are many more needed, but there is a lot of good in there. One example of, there are some changes here that merit discussion, but perhaps we can talk about it later if anyone is interested in specifics. One very interesting piece, though, that not everybody is talking about is the fact that the word alien has been used in our immigration laws to describe immigrants as they're coming to the United States since the beginning of immigration laws. And that word obviously is dehumanizing. In fact, referring to somebody coming from another country as an alien clearly is symbolic, it is meaningful, it is felt by immigrants, and it is something that immigration practitioners and advocates like me have long been upset about. And this law would, for the first time, change every instance of that word into being non-citizen. Now, I know that's symbolic, but it gives you a taste and a flavor for the kind of changes that we are eager to see through this law, but in other ways. Other kinds of temporary residency that would be created by this law are also very important and could create a lot of relief for undocumented immigrants in the country who can't access legal work permits. You need a work permit to be able to receive certain protections in the workplace. And if you don't have that, you can really be at a significant disadvantage. You don't get a social security number, even though you're paying your taxes. And so being able to get a work permit would be huge, and that's included in the US Citizenship Act. The Dream and Promise Act, you may have just heard yesterday, this week, passed the House, but has, with bipartisan support, has not yet passed the Senate. There are some provisions in it that we don't love that would continue to criminalize some non-citizens, and that causes disparity and racial profiling and that kind of thing, which we're not happy about. But 4 million, approximately 4 million undocumented youth, as well as additional numbers of farm workers, would be helped by the Dream and Promise Act. And so, of course, we are very much in favor of this particular bill moving to the Senate and hopefully being passed there. The intelligence I'm hearing right now is that we're very worried about what could happen at the Senate. Additional changes could be made to the bill to make it less helpful and even potentially harmful. So it's very important that we are communicating with our members about our desire to keep the House version of the bill moving forward. Another area of interest to us is the Essential Workers Act. It has not passed either the House or Senate, but it's very important since 5 million workers at least are undocumented, but is considered essential. So they're working right now in service of people like me and the rest of us, but they don't have status. And what they're doing is considered essential and is very important. But if something were to happen to them and they're undocumented, they can't access public benefits like healthcare or cash assistance or anything else. And so that puts them at jeopardy. So being able to see this act passed would be very important for those protections. The Violence Against Women Act, again, I'm sure many of you have heard of it. You may have supported it in the past. It needs to be reauthorized every 5 years. The purpose of reauthorization is not because it becomes, extinct. It still exists, but the reauthorization is there to create an opportunity to improve it on a 5-year basis. A couple of years ago in 2018 and 2018, we worked hard, and in 2019 we saw it pass the House, but it did not pass the Senate. Now we again have a passed Violence Against Women Act reauthorization in the House, and it's moving on to the Senate to see what will happen there. As you may know, the Senate is split, but there are a lot of people in the center who are debating. Some want to support it and some don't. And so that's where we're worried it could freeze. The same with the Dream and Promise Act. So briefly, I just wanted to talk about COVID. Obviously, hopefully you've been reading and understand a little bit about how the pandemic has disproportionately impacted immigrants, in particular undocumented immigrants, partly because of the types of jobs and types of housing that are available. Also because of lack of access, as I mentioned just now, to public support, including healthcare, cash assistance, food assistance, and housing benefits. The lack of work permits actually makes it really difficult. Some are not eligible, as I mentioned, but there are also many, many, many thousands of immigrants who are eligible for work permits, even if they don't have long-term status, but they can't get them simply because the government is not issuing them. So again, we have filed numerous lawsuits to try to get those work permits issued without success yet. So that is an area of advocacy for us with the current administration. You may know and may realize and have been reading about the fact that vaccines are very difficult to get for even those of us who qualify. For sure, if you have language barriers, transportation barriers, or don't have access to the internet on a regular basis where you can do these, race to register kind of things where people are registering and driving 2 hours away to get their vaccine. There are so many individuals who don't have access to either computers, online access, or being able to get in a car and drive like that to get themselves vaccinated. That impacts the immigrant community significantly. And finally, only the most recent COVID bills. So there were a number of bills before that helped many of us with COVID relief, but they did not include undocumented immigrants. Only the most recent, the American Rescue Act, actually includes relief for mixed status families, meaning if I, for example, am documented or my child is documented, but I'm not, or if I'm documented, but my partner is not, then, we were not eligible for family assistance through any of the other COVID bills. The American Rescue Act, however, does, which provides a lot of relief, but leaves still more than 9 million immigrants out in the cold. So looking ahead, and I'm going to skip quickly through this, a lot of bills moving in the right direction, much more that needs to happen. I want to be clear that we do not want to go back to where we were in 2016. A lot of people talk about restoring and going back to where we were and undoing what was done by the last administration. I'm not in favor of language like that, to be honest with you, because where we were under the Obama administration was not good either. We were dealing with a broken immigration system. We were fighting against things like family detention at the border, where immigrant families, parents with children, mothers with children as young as infants were being held in detention. Keep in mind, detention is not what you might think it is. Detention doesn't sound that bad, but actually it's prison for months and even years at a time for some individuals. And so going back to where we were in 2016 is not our goal. We are looking for real change and real progress. So that's just a quick summary of what we're looking for. Slides include a little bit more information about what we're trying to achieve. A few ways to engage, a couple things to watch out for. Pay attention to intersections. The League of Women Voters and other activism groups in our town and in our community are really helpful, educating us about opportunities to better integrate our housing, to better get people. There are other volunteer initiatives around helping people to get to COVID vaccination sites. Also, all the declarations from our city council and other, our schools, everyone talking about the problematic instances of racism and xenophobia, whether it's anti-Asian hate crimes, as we've been hearing more about this week, but have been going on for a year and much longer than that, or whether it's anti-Black racism. Keep in mind that these impact immigrants and immigrant communities as well. So if you care about refugees, if you care about immigrants, you have to also pay attention to these intersecting areas for advocacy. There are lots of ways to volunteer around here. Food banks, which are not the same as food assistance programs. So food banks allow anyone to get food, it doesn't matter if you're documented or not. Whereas, some of the governmental food programs require documentation. And so food banks are a great way to help. There are refugee assistance programs in the area, shelters and vaccination outreach efforts to watch for. Also, learning more about community organizing efforts like Welcoming Falls Church, which is a false church-based organization. I've recently joined in. There are others who have been organizing for a long time through Welcoming Falls Church. There's a Facebook page for it if you're interested, as well as welcomingfallschurch.org. It gives you some more information. We're looking at ways to engage more community members in our activism. So I have contact details, but I'll stop sharing now. And at the end, I can always provide more. I want to be sure to turn the mic over back to Sarah or straight to Eduardo. I'm not sure where it's going, but that's it for me.
Yeah, and I think I'd turn it over to Eduardo. Thanks so much. Really, really interesting.
Thank you so much for the information, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eduardo Zelaya. I am from El Salvador, and I immigrated to the United States 10 years ago. And so I've been living in Washington, D.C. for over 6 years, and then the rest, I lived in Virginia. I am a resident of Arlington County, and I started organizing with CASA since the early beginnings. We're talking about 7 years ago, probably around that time, when we start mobilizing people from all over the place in Virginia for the immigration reform bill that was happening back in 2012. And I'm going to share my screen with you. I'm going to advise you that I'm going to be talking more about the connection that we do as a community with what she just taught. How to pronounce your name? I'm sorry, Archi. There is like a lot of things happening right now in Congress, but then what are we doing? What the community is doing to make those changes? Because like she said, back in the days in the Obama administration, yeah, that wasn't a better time for the immigrant community to be in this country. And at the end of the day, something that I like to mention is that immigrants, we all are immigrants, but at the same time, it doesn't matter the status. If you have status, like it doesn't matter if an immigrant has a legal status and other ones don't at the same time. What matters is the color of the skin. And so I'm going to share a little bit more. Like I said, I'm going to touch base more in what the community is doing to make these changes. Let me share my screen with you. Let's see. And let me see if you guys can see it. Can you guys see it?
Yep, looks good.
Awesome. So what's our mission? I did it in Spanish and English in case. So our mission is to create a more justice society by building power and improving the quality of life in working class and immigrant communities. You will see throughout this presentation, you will see a picture of our members from all over the 3 states, Maryland, Virginia, and Pennsylvania, that have been advocating and working in different issues. In this case, everything that has happening in the federal level. And then after that, I'm going to gradually start talking about local and state victories and priorities too. Our vision. We envision a future where we stand in our own power, our families live free from discrimination and fear, and our diverse communities thrive as we work with our partners to achieve full human rights for all. And you will see pictures. This is a picture where we start back in 2012, 13, we first start endorsing a local and state and federal congressional leaderships that were willing to work with immigrants issues. And then who we are, where we at. So we are an organization based on membership with over 100,000 members across the state of Maryland, Virginia, and South Central Pennsylvania. CASA is the largest member-based Latino and immigrant organization in the Mid-Atlantic region. So who are these members? What are the members? What are their roles? So CASA organizing, like I said, CASA, we have 3. I explain it really simple. Who's CASA? So we have a team of advocacy, we have a team of services, and a team of organizing. So we all work together, right, to serve our community. And so who these members are? So we build block of organizing structure We organize geographically, includes new activists and existing members. They meet at least twice a month or go to actions or meeting in person. Well, right now, everything is virtual. Like we're meeting with them weekly, every Saturday, in different places to give them updates about where our campaigns are, what's the status of them, and what's there to do. And then each group or committee, it's formed by 30 to 40 people that are participating in weekly virtual meetings. And then we have currently 7 standing committees all over Virginia. I'm going to talk specifically about Virginia. So CASA Virginia committees, where are the committees? So we have, geographically, we have committees in the Fairfax County and the city of Falls Church, Annandale, Springfield, and Alexandria City. We have in Prince William County, in the city of Woodbridge, Dumfries, and Manassas, Winchester County, in the city of Winchester City, and Eastern Shore area, in Accomack County and Olney County. And lastly, we have committee groups organizing in Hampton Road area too, which is Virginia Beach and Norfolk area. So what are the roles that these members that are like weekly organizing, informing, passing their word, and trying to recruit more members to get more involved in our issues? So each standing committee elects 2 members to the CASA Leadership Council. The Leadership Council is the primary member decision-making body for the organization, meets quarterly in person, and then conference call if needed. Responsible for setting organizational priorities at the national and state level. I'm gonna talk a little bit about these local and state level priorities as well. And then they identify assessment criteria for endorsement questionnaires and participate in candidate interviews. Like they are the ones that interview the candidates that are running for a specific like seat, for example, a supervisor in a very local county, or a delegate, or the lieutenant governor. Yesterday, we were like having interviews with them, with the people who's running this June. So this is the role that some of these community members are playing in the decision that us as CASA are doing in Virginia. And so CASA leadership informs, organize, and mobilize members throughout the state, right? So, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about the victories that we've been able to achieve throughout these years, which is in Fairfax County. I'm pretty sure that you guys heard about the Trust Act, right? Which is the local that limits policies officer direct cooperation and information sharing with ICE. The universal representation, which is the local rule that provide legal representation for immigrants facing deportation proceedings. And then in Prince William County, we recently, last year, we won the end of the 287G program, which is a program that deputizes local law enforcement to act as ICE agents, right? And then I'm pretty sure that you heard about this big hit that we did, and I'm pretty happy and proud to say that I was part of these victories in a state level, such as the privilege cards, which is like the access of that allows Virginia immigrant residents to obtain access to a driving car and operate a vehicle, and the minimum wage. I'm pretty sure that you heard about that one too. And recently, in this past legislation, we were advocating to pass a law that it's about the limited DMV data sharing, which is like limiting the ICE to get information from the DMV without a warrant, right? So all these people that are applying for the privilege cards, or the driver license privilege cards, these people, that law wasn't protecting the database that the DMV was getting from the community that were applying to this benefit. And so what we did this year is that we decided to advocate for an amendment that will protect this database, right, with a warrant, right? So now ICE can really like get or request any information about people that apply to this benefit without a warrant, which is like a huge win, because now people were a little skeptical in the beginning when we told them, hey, look, but we need it. This is not the end. Yeah, we won. We barely opened a door, but we have to open it like 100%, like 100%, because the information that the DMV will be getting from their community will be exposed to ICE. Like any federal agent could request the information and just extract and start doing what they have been doing, right, throughout these years. And so we decided to, again, to go back, organize, mobilize, and virtually now, because of the pandemic, obviously, we were like every day advocating, meeting with the delegate, with the senators, to get the vote and help them to see the reality of why people were not applying to these benefits, because people were still like feeling that they were not protected, you know? So that was a huge win that happened in this past legislation. And the other one, which is the ID for all, that allows a person to obtain an ID issued by the DMV regardless of legal status. So these are the local and state victories that we have been able to achieve with the leadership, CASA leadership members. And then what are we doing now? All our efforts in Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia are focused on a federal level now, right? What Archie was talking about. So this is like she said, I mean, there is a lot of things that needs to be fixed. Like these bills are not like perfect for our community, but then this is just the beginning of something that can happen, right? Like the bigger picture. But we have to organize, we have to fight, so we make sure that these bills first are like accepted, and then we do the amendments or all these fixing that we need to do, right, as a community too, because it's not up to them, it's up to us at the end too. Which is the HR 6 that I'm pretty sure that you guys know about this bill, which is the Promise Act, or the HR 1603. So right now, I'm not gonna talk like details about this, because it's just like a lot of like language that I don't even like understand yet. But then some of the I can just like briefly tell you that the who does it cover, or a little summary about the HR 6 is that the people that will be provide protection and after a path of citizenship for dreamers, DACA holders, and temporary status holders, and individuals with their enforcement department or status, deputy or status. And then the other bill, which is the Farm Workforce Modernization Act of 2021, describe the provision for who is eligible to receive a certificate agricultural workers status, which grants temporary status for those who have been working in the agriculture sector. And so next, this is some picture of this is like way back, right? This is not right now, the pandemic, because obviously we are like still mobilizing to Washington, D.C. We're all wearing masks, trying to be like keeping the distance and keeping our members safe. But then this is some of the pictures that they're really like make a lot of change personally, because that's where I saw really the power of the people, how much us as a people, no matter what color, what country we came from, are capable of doing this country. So you will see the picture of people like getting arrested back in Washington, D.C., trying to pass the legislation for 11 million of immigrants in the United States. You will see this picture of a new U.S. citizen, which was voting for the first time, you know, and she's a Latina from Puerto Rico. And then March, you know, that happened back in the days in DC. So these are just a little bit of like background and things that we have been doing with the community. And so I again take the words from Archie is that, yeah, these are things that are happening in the Congress, but then what are we doing? What are we willing to do? So those are some of the things that I want to share with you guys, so that way, in case you guys are interested on joining us, you know, and participate in some of our actions, meetings. I know that there is a pandemic going on, but then we try always to keep ourselves as like protect, you know, and make sure that our members, they all are aware of our of what's going on. That yeah, this is important, but at the same time, if we don't do this, no one else will do it for us. So this is some of the things that have been happening, and I'm going to share with you guys how can you participate in this stuff. So because of the pandemic, we are not doing in-person meetings. Everything it's like everything it's virtual, right? So we're meeting weekly with our community members from Annandale, Springfield, and then all these areas that I mentioned before. And then we have been able to get more like proactive and more creative with the tools that the internet has provided for us in these times, right? So what can you guys do? How can you guys like take action in these bills in Congress? Well, then we have this app that is called Empower. And what this app does is that it will technically give you the opportunity to communicate with other people from your contact list, so that way you can invite them to do something such as like making a phone call to your Congress, to your congresswoman, congressman, or your senator, state senator. So that way you can automatically leave a message in their office. That call direct them, send you direct to the offices, and you can just leave a message telling your saying or expressing your support to the X bill, so that way they can see that you their constituents are actively, you know, working together with these issues that are oppressing us as a minorities in this country, right? So we all in CASA, we are doing this. We have different like links for each state. For example, we have Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania. And so what you have to do is to create an account, of course. Can you guys see my screen? Okay. So create an account, and then it will automatically, you will have to like, you can add the person that you may think that can actually take action, right? And then you can, as you can see, that's your network. You can create your own, you can build your own list, invite them by text by just clicking. And then once the most important thing is that you can check who has been taking action. For example, if I send the invitation to Allison to make a call supporting these bills, then if Allison makes a call, I will get the notification that, and I will get points because my recruitment, my invitation to Allison, she actually made the second step, right? So it's just like a very like competitive and healthy competitive app and way to be more engaged from our houses, you know, in case, you know, you guys don't want to go out like door knocking or go to the rallies or to the press conferences in Washington, D.C. This is a pretty good way to support from our homes, right, during these times. And so of course we have the version in Spanish. If you guys download this, you will hear my voice with instructions that I get a lot of, like, my friends are making fun of me, my leaders that, my community leaders, that I sounds like I'm this guy from ESPN, like the sport, I don't know how you call it, in the sport that, you know, like that works in ESPN. And because my voice sounds really like deep, they said. But then you will see the instructions of how to make the call and how to make action from your own phone. So that's it. I think I'm going to, if you have any questions or any concerns that I'm here to answer them. I'm going to kick it back to you, Alison. And thank you so much for you guys' time.
I have a question for Eduardo. Maybe share some strategies for outreach in terms of, what have you found successful in engaging new members, in getting members who maybe have signed up but not been active to be more active?
Yes, well then, the door knocking for me is like my favorite one, because I like to interact with people. I like the make the connection with people, and but then because of this time now, we're not like door knocking. And so what has been working really, it's the strategy of using this app, because people that it's in your phone list, they know who you are, so it's easier because they already know who you are. They may know that you are involved in this movement, so it will be more like easier for them to make the step and actually get more like involved in this type of activities that we're doing, right? So I feel like this has been very efficient in my case now that the pandemic, it's like crazy. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we had a question in the chat, if you could speak about how CASA gets involved in registering people to vote and getting people to the polls.
Oh yeah, well then I'm talking right now as a C3, but now I'm going to talk about as a C4, CASA in action. So yeah, we are right now, then we have the elections coming up, right? So if we endorse X candidate, then we will have to, we do the same thing, like we're communicate with our members weekly, who are these endorsements, why them, and then I'm not the one who's gonna like give them the updates. The ones that are gonna update the rest of the committee or group will be the members that are part of the leadership council, right? And those are the ones that interview and make the decision to who CASA will be endorsing, right? So we do the same. We will talk to the members. We will talk about who these endorsements are, and then we will bring them, and then we will just like go out and door knock, for them. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Question for Archie. I think that some of your work revolves around trying to end human trafficking and combat that set of challenges. Will you talk for a few minutes about what you've been doing lately on that front?
Sure. A lot of our work on human trafficking we do in the direct service area. So we have a lot of clients who have been trafficked, whether by sometimes it's by employers, and it's labor trafficking. We also serve women and others who have been sex trafficked. And then finally, we do have a number of clients who've been trafficked by diplomats. It's surprisingly common in this country. And so for our clients who have been trafficked, and a common misconception is that people who are immigrants and who've been trafficked have only been trafficked into this country. In fact, a lot of the trafficking victims we serve came to this country for another reason, but were trafficked after they got here because they were vulnerable to exploitation and abuse. And so that is another reason why being undocumented is such an issue. It can lead, it's one of the risk factors really, along with homelessness, and gender, that can lead you to being further victimized and trafficked. So our work has been largely in the context of engaging with survivors of trafficking here, trying to get them status on a local and we don't do a lot. So let me say this. On a federal level, we are advocating for an increase to the number of U visas that are available. And U visas are for victims of crime. They're a form of immigration status for a crime victim who is cooperating with law enforcement. Again, the T visa, which is for victims of trafficking, is only if you've been trafficked into the United States. If you're here and you've been trafficked, your only option is the U visa. For those individuals who apply for U visas, there are only 10,000 available per year. And in fact, we've long reached that cap years ago. And so what happens is we have more than, I think it's now 200,000 200,000 plus people on the backlog. It's, I think, around 280,000 at this point. So every year when the fiscal year begins in October, the next 10,000 are taken off the list, but there's still another 200 something thousand waiting. And so we've been trying to get that cap lifted or removed completely. The US Citizenship Act includes an increase from 10,000 to 30,000, but that's again an issue that we're very unhappy about, which I think would make a big difference. So on a federal level, we advocate there. On a state level, we have a number of advocacy campaigns around the country related to trafficking, but that gets different state by state. Sometimes it's about trying to expunge a record that a victim of trafficking might have so that she might qualify for immigration status. Other times it's about trying to help her qualify for status in the first place. I see some questions in the chat. Allison, is it okay if I go ahead and address those? Okay.
Sure, that's great.
Thank you. So I see, could I talk more about what I expect from the Biden administration, how we can get involved with Welcome? So I expect the Biden administration will, make good on some of their promises. So the administration has promised, for example, prioritizing vulnerable populations. But what I know is going to be a problem is that things like the U visa, like I described, unless Congress moves the cap, there's nothing the administration can do, right? So Congress has to work with the administration, otherwise the administration's hands are tied. So they can make promises, but actually there's a need for action by Congress. Another example would be the work permits issue I mentioned earlier, that they can give more work permits to people who are eligible and qualify under the law, but the administration has not. And that was true under the Obama administration and was true also under the Trump administration. And so, even if there is will on the part of the administration, they need to have the staffing to be able to process these through. They say, we already had a meeting with the chief of policy in USCIS. What they say the issue is that they're understaffed. The USCIS is a fee-based organization, which means only for people who file applications and pay their fees, those fees then become the basis for staffing even the humanitarian applications, which is not a big enough pot of money to fund all the applications that need to get processed. Right now, Congress does not appropriate money to USCIS, which is a huge problem. So we have this chicken and egg thing that we keep going around. We talk to the administration, they say you need to get money from Congress. We talk to Congress, they say they should be able to accomplish this within the money they have. So the Biden administration is making a lot of really great promises. Some things we are seeing come to fruition, but we have our work very much cut out in front of us. I think the second part of the question is how you can get involved with Welcome. So the organization Welcoming Falls Church right now it's a group of volunteers who are putting in time and energy into planning what will be the activities this year given the pandemic. In the past, there have been a lot of efforts to raise money and give to local charities, to food bank, and also to host refugee families. Some of that has shut down because of the administration closing down how many refugees would come in, and also just because of the pandemic. And so this year, we are looking at ways to open up more. And as refugee families begin coming in after October, we want to kind of build an interest in, when I say host, it doesn't necessarily mean in your home, it means sort of being responsible for the community organizing around getting backpacks, getting food, getting clothing, getting bedding, that kind of thing for a refugee family. So, there are a lot of ways that we can lean in with the extras we have to give. We are doing some advocacy around vaccinations right now. So I encourage you to check out the Facebook page as well as the website and get in touch through the contacts that are available there if you're interested in being more involved. And we're a small group and I'm sure we'll help. The website I had on the slide, I believe it's just www.welcomingfallschurch.org. Maybe you missed this. When we are talking about gender issues, are we talking about the spectrum of gender identities? Absolutely. So we talk about gender-based, used to be at the Tahirih Justice Center and in the anti-violence movement broadly, we would talk about violence against women. And that's why it's called the Violence Against Women Act. we have shifted in the last several years away from talking about violence against women, which is not because we don't understand and center the experiences of women that are unique and problematic often, but also because there are so many other individuals who experience violence because of their gender, or their gender identity, or because of their gender expression. Many of the clients I've represented myself have had gender imputed to them. So I represented, for example, a homosexual man who identified as male, no different gender identity, but the people who were persecuting him in his home country accused him of being female. And so you have a gender identity issue, even though the person themselves does not actually have a gender identity issue, has a sexual orientation that is different from the norm in that country, the majority standard in that country. And so as a result, you end up with a gender issue, even though you don't really, in immigration terms, you're fighting a gender claim. So we talk about gender-based violence very broadly. It encompasses things like gender identity related violence, domestic violence, which can be between a man and a woman. It can also be a lot of different permutations of couples and ways that gender-based violence can show up in a domestic couple. It could include dating violence, stalking. It can also include sexual assault, sexual abuse. It can also include trafficking, as I mentioned, as well as things like female genital mutilation or cutting, which happens overseas. People come here to get away from it, but it does also happen in the United States. Can also include forced marriage and other forms of forced engagement in that sense. So there's a lot of ways in which gender-based violence is a broad term that encompasses a lot. At our website, actually, tahirih.org, we have more information about what gender-based violence is. And we also have a specialized website about forced marriage alone, which is happening at a very high rate in the United States among immigrant, but also non-immigrant communities. And so that's preventforcedmarriage.org as well.
Okay. Any other questions from the group?
This is Sandy Tarpinian. I don't have a question, but I have an example to give. I also am a part of Welcoming Falls Church. And one of the things that I've participated in with a small group of other people from that organization, and this is actually a link to CASA, because CASA has engaged with Welcoming Falls Church as well. But CASA identified a set of families that live up in the Culmore area that are having a really, really hard time managing, especially during the pandemic, mostly because of job loss, some single women who have lost jobs, or a family that has a very compromised child that needs special nutritional needs. And so we have committed as a small group that once a month, we will buy food for those families. We have a list of what they need, what they would like, not individually, but kind of as a group. And we deliver that to one guy's house, and we take turns on a once a month basis to help deliver that. We meet at a library, and the families come and meet us and, walk away with a bag or two of groceries and some household essentials, maybe laundry, detergent, toilet paper, that type of thing. And so that's one way that we have gotten involved, and just serves as an example of some of the kind of things that Welcoming Falls Church might give you an opportunity for. Another organization that I would also point out is Lutheran Social Services. They are the resettlers of refugees in this Northern Virginia area. And they also have a lot of volunteer opportunities to help getting refugees settled, and helping be like English mentors, which is always needed with our immigrant community. And a lot of that can be done online now too, with adults and children. So just a couple of ideas that I have gotten involved in that I'll throw out.
Thanks so much, Sandy. And another question came in through chat, which is a question about the current issues at the border. And does either of your organizations have a position on how the administration should handle people coming into the border now, presently?
I offered an answer in the chat. I don't know, Eduardo, if you want to speak for CASA, and then if needed, I can explain anything in the chat.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll just expound a little bit on what I said. Tahirih has been attempting to work with members of the media in the last couple of weeks to explain that this language around a crisis is really problematic. Actually, there is no crisis. There's no state of emergency. There's no need to panic. The idea of a crisis breeds for a lot of us this feeling of, oh my gosh, we're being flooded. People are coming across the border, and that is not the right way to view this. There are people who are in need of assistance or who are simply in need of a new start or who need protection, and they've come to the border to ask for it. If we had an orderly system that in fact placed their needs at the center and asked them questions and offered them opportunities to receive services from organizations and communities that are interested in providing those services, then we would be in a very different position where they would be able to then speak with lawyers, get information, perhaps representation, and eventually have their day in court. We've seen a breakdown, again, in the last couple of administrations, a real problem at the border in terms of how both the Obama and the Trump administrations handled border migration. It's an inevitability. It is going to happen, and it is not about trying to keep individuals out. There are national security and health, concerns that can easily be balanced with the interests of the individuals who are trying to approach. Unfortunately, the narratives around immigrants coming to the country at the southern border being safety risks or health risks or otherwise causing a crisis is really problematic.
And additionally, I just wanted to add that I think the language has been really impactful. The way that we are the ones that are helping to feed up all these problems and divisions with our community. So like you said, and I take your words again, that there is no crisis. Crisis is the ones that this country for many years has been creating in our countries. And because of that same reason, people had the need to immigrate and looking for better opportunities, right? And so we haven't, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, I got a call from someone in Texas that they need some information about or some support, legal support, because they crossed the border. And then now they needed some legal advices and stuff. So of course, because we don't have the ability to go and then represent them over there with our legal services that we have as CASA, we are part of the this national coalition that are advocating for all these issues, right? Immigration issues. So what we do, the only way that we can support them when we get those calls or they reach out to us is just to connect to these organizations that are giving the services, the legal services in the borders or in these places where they are being detained. So that's the only way that we've been. But the CASA position about the crisis is that there is no crisis. It's just like immigration has been happening throughout the years. Right, so there is nothing new about someone immigrating. It's just like the human instincts to immigrate. Our ancestors immigrate because they wanted to immigrate to look for water, to look for corn, for food. So it's the same thing right now. So now society has been using these languages to keep people divided and create all these illusions of how someone, your own kind of human, your brother or sister can label you just because you are crossing or coming from other countries. So I feel like it's within our responsibilities to take action and be really, really critical when we using these type of words, right? And because that's what happened when they wanted to create a comprehensive immigration reform. When in the Congress they were saying, hey, look, there is bad immigrants and good immigrants. That language divide even more our community. So language is really important for us to watch, and it's really critical when we're talking with our neighbors or our friends about how we feel about something. So the language use can be really, really like important when we're talking about these issues of the genders or legal status or beliefs. So it is something that I wanted to add about that specific word.
Yes, absolutely. And another question for Eduardo, which is, will you speak about the legal services that CASA provides? Will you tell us a little more about that part of CASA?
Yes. So right now, because of our offices are closed, right? For the public, we only are doing appointments with our members, and we prioritize it with our members, current members. And so how it works right now is that we have a legal department that it's based on Maryland. We don't have lawyers in here. We don't have lawyers that work for CASA in Maryland or paralegals, but then we are working with other firms, legal firms, and we refer them to these firms that we trust, right? And that we know who they are, they know who we are. And so that's the way that we have been operating. But in case we have someone from our community base, for example, ex-member that has been working in been organizing with us for 3-4 years that need like representation or something urgent, then we try the best to get our legal services to come to our office and make sure that they get their help. Our members get their help like maybe like twice, three times a month now. It's in terms of capacity, that's the only challenge that we're facing right now, because we don't have the capacity to have a lawyer in Virginia, but we do have friends and partners that are like and have been working with us. And then I personally have been having like good experience with them because they have been able to help our own members, and then I've been there to see how they treat them and how they work with them, which is more important. And it's not only members, it's not a requirement. I mean, it's ideal, would be good for you to like become member, because the membership, and I'm going to talk about the membership a little bit more deeply, because I believe in what our people can do. I don't want to position myself like I'm here to help you. No, I'm here to help you, to give you the tools so that way you can help yourself. So the membership doesn't mean that you are becoming member to give you something in exchange. The membership means more than that. The membership is something that you will feel part of, and then it will give you access to participate and be part of the decisions that the organization makes when we endorsing or when we decide as a community what are the issues that as a community has been impacting us and we want to work on. So that's the big differences when I talked about the membership. And so like for example, weekly there is like 15-20 members in Fairfax County that are becoming members, but then they get to the office and they call our office, they want to become member because they want to have access to X service. But then now my job is to tell them, hey, look, this is the importance of becoming a member. This is how much you can do for your brothers and sisters, for your family. Becoming a member, CASA member, doesn't mean that you will have access to services only. It means something more than that. You will have access to organize, inform yourself, recruit more people, and be active in something to help you to become better and strive for justice. That's how I explain the differences on membership. So of course not, if someone needs legal services, they don't have to be members. We can provide them the services, but then I really explain, I like to touch base and sit with people, with our community members, to talk about the importances of becoming a CASA member.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much. And it sounds like both of you are doing such important work, and we really appreciate the work that you've been doing and that your organizations are doing and will continue to do. So we really appreciate you speaking to us this afternoon. I think all of us who participated have learned a lot, and we'll continue to support your work as you go forward.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you everyone for your time. Archie, thanks for your information. It was really helpful for me.
You too, Eduardo. It was
Thank
helpful
you
for
so
me
much.
too. I'm going to reach out to you about some collaboration.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really nice
Awesome.
to
We
have
need
you
it.
there.
We need it.
Yeah,
So Alison, thank you so much. Everyone in here, I hope you have a blessed weekend.
you too.
You
Bye,
too.
everybody.
Thank you so much.